Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be a recap of all of the books I read in July. I ended June with not the best reading month for me personally, and I thought, you know what, it's only up from here. And then July happened and it just got worse. July has definitely been my worst reading month to date, both in quantity of books as well as overall ratings. Between January and May, I was averaging anywhere from 12 to 15 books a month, which was really great. I was enjoying a lot of my reads. And then June, I kind of fell off. And then July, I kind of fell off as well. I ended up only having 9 reads in the month of July, which is still a decent amount of books, but like I said, compared to myself at the beginning of the year, not as many as I typically read. And I was definitely in just a little bit of a slump. I wasn't drawn to reading as much. I had some external factors that were impacting my reading, and overall, ending the month, I'm feeling a lot more excited about where I'm going next with my reads than I was feeling for the entire month. On top of quantity, I also had a little bit of a decrease in quality with an average rating of only 3.3 stars across all of the books that I read. June was 3.4, and I was determined to get it higher, and I didn't. And I also had no 5 stars in the month of July, which was so sad to me. I am a little bit picky about what I give 5 stars, but I'm also someone who is of the opinion that giving out a lot of 5 stars doesn't diminish its value. So I'm not so picky that it's hard for me to find 5 stars. I feel like I tend to have a couple per month, so it was surprising that I didn't have a single one. Let's go ahead and jump into the books that I read. I'm going to start with one that's nonfiction, so I don't give too much weight to the rating, and then I'm going to jump into least favorite to most favorite read for the month. So my nonfiction read was Serviceberry, Abundance and Reciprocity in the Natural World. So this is a shorter nonfiction book by the same author as Braiding Sweetgrass. It looks at the serviceberry in nature and its function and its use and how we can apply that to our lives outside of nature. I went into this book thinking it was going to be a little bit more nature focused, and it ended up being a little bit more economy focused. So that threw me for a little bit of a loop, but I still felt like I learned from it, and I ultimately enjoyed reading it. The book really focuses on the importance of generosity and community, and she talks a lot about gift economies and the willingness to gift things to people and not expect things in return. She talks about how a lot of things today are monetized and there's a dollar amount put to them, but there's a lot of value in things that can't be monetized. She talks a lot about how nature gives so much, and we as humans have the capacity to give a lot, both back to the earth and to each other. She also acknowledges that there's no perfect solution for how to run the world or how to change some of the problems that capitalism has caused. She doesn't propose a gift economy as, the perfect fix, and she understands that it's not necessarily applicable at the full scale of society, but she gives a lot of tangible ways to kind of act on the teachings of this book in small and individual ways. If I had to give this a rating, I would say it sits between a 4 and a 5, and that is Serviceberry. Okay, my official worst read of the month was also my first read of July, and that was my only read for about the first 2 weeks, so I think that unintentionally set the tone for my reading. And it was a thriller called The Last One. This thriller follows our main character as she's on a cruise with her boyfriend. She wakes up the next day and she is the last one on the cruise ship. Every other passenger, every crew member has disappeared, and she's just there. And she's like, how did this happen? How did everyone disappear? How is the ship still driving itself in the water? Why am I still here? We soon find out that she's not exactly the last one, and there's a small handful of other passengers, and the group of them have to work together to figure out what's going on and what they're going to do about it. I thought this book had a lot of promise, and it did have certain elements that kept me engaged, but I felt like it was too long for what it was, and it was really, really focused on the main character and her story, but I didn't necessarily feel like it served the story. It reflected a lot on her relationship with her father and her relationship on risk taking, and I saw the connection with the greater plot, but they didn't feel very cohesive with each other. They felt really separated. There was a singular American character in this book that felt like a total caricature of Americans, and I'm not going to get on here and act like we're the best country in the world, because we're not. I'm not going to get on here and act like every American is so polite and kind and friendly, because we're not. But it really was a caricature of all of the like worst traits of Americans. And so it just kind of put me off. I think that my main problem is that the rest of the characters seem to get depth that he didn't get. So it did just make me roll my eyes a little bit of like, okay, here we go again. It's the boisterous and annoying American who thinks he knows everything. I understand that you have to have a character that's unlikable, and I'm not really that mad that it's a stereotypical annoying American. I think I was more annoyed that everyone else got their flowers and he was just kind of left as he is, in my opinion, as the reader. While I thought the twists were compelling, I didn't always feel like the author fully committed to them, and I felt like the last page was just, again, made my eyes roll a little bit. I ultimately just found myself getting sick of this book while I was reading it, but I was like so far into it that I didn't want to DNF, and this one ultimately was just a letdown for me because I thought it had a really fun premise. Other people might like it more. I still encourage people to give things their own try, but yeah, the last one was not for me. Next, I have a classic that I gave a 2.75, and that is The Island of Dr. Moreau. This is a sci fi classic detailing a British gentleman who washes up on the island, I believe, off the coast of South America. And there are some strange going on there. There are some mysterious figures. There's a mysterious Dr. Moreau, and he has to figure out what exactly type of experiments he's conducting on this island. Find out pretty quick, but if you don't know the premise, I think it's still fun to find out for yourself on a read. And I can see how this book was really influential for the genre of science fiction. I do think it definitely was a book that took a lot of risks, and I can see how it had a lot of commentary on Darwinism at the time. I think the reason I rated this a little lower is just because I can't help but view this book through a modern lens. That's not a new conversation around classics. I think it's important to always be reevaluating the literature that we prop up for one reason or the other. And I think viewing this through a modern lens, some of the descriptions just like didn't sit right with me, and some of the descriptions felt a little bit of their time, and I just wasn't big on it. I also felt like for such a short book, the story felt a little stuck at times, or like it wasn't moving forward, or we were revisiting similar narratives. So I don't know. I think ultimately it just wasn't the classic for me. I thought I read it and checked it off my classic bucket list. I would definitely be interested to see adaptations off of this book, but I think the original text itself just fell a little bit flat for me. Okay, up next we've got Work Nights. This was a book that I read for a book club that I go to in my community. It wasn't one that I had ever heard of, and it wasn't one that I probably would have picked up on my own. And unfortunately, the best descriptor I have for this book is just that it was kind of a nothing sandwich. The main character didn't have a lot of discernible motivation. She was just really listless, and she was continuously making messy decisions that she frankly seemed a little bit old to be making, in my opinion. I thought that this book gave a really interesting glimpse at kind of the modern day work life balance, going to a corporate job where your job's kind of fake, and then going home and finding a way to cope with the fact that this is your life and this is your fake job, and making messy dating decisions. This book is fairly short but takes place over a full calendar year, and the year really just blends together. I think, with the exception of the last scene, you could take a scene from just about any point in the story, scramble it around, and it wouldn't change much of the structure, which I do think is something impressive that the author is able to pull off, because there is this theme of like the days blending together in the book, so it feels a little bit meta. But yeah, this was just a book where I finished it and I was like, I'm never going to think about this again. It's also comped to The Devil Wears Prada, and there are very few similarities with The Devil Wears Prada other than a media adjacent corporate job. Some of my friends that read it for book club said that it was a better comp to Girls. That could be something that might make you like the book more than I did, and that is Work Nights. Okay, my most middle of the road read this month, coming in at 3.5, is one that makes me kind of bummed out because I thought it was going to be a 5 star. So I'm kind of bummed that I gave it a 3. I gave it a 3.25. Uh oh. I'll bump it up to a 3.5. and that is Sadie by Courtney Summers. So this is a YA thriller following our main character Sadie as she is on kind of a revenge journey to avenge her sister's murder that was never solved. We follow her go from person to person, place to place, trying to connect the dots and get information. Simultaneously, we are following a podcast that's detailing her sister's murder as well as Sadie's now disappearance. I didn't dislike this book by any means, and like everyone says, it's a really great audiobook production. It's got a full-fledged cast, but also the actors of the audiobook are really strong in their voice acting. But something about it was just not clicking for me or missing for me. Really not sure what it was that made me not love this book and just feel neutral towards it. My initial thought, I was like, maybe it's YA, but a lot of the detail in the story is fairly mature, and it isn't a young story by any means. I think Sadie was a really cool character to follow because she's really emotionally driven, and especially with the revenge arc, I feel like a lot of the times we see this like perfect calculation and everything is executed to a T, so you get this perfect revenge. And her revenge was just driven by love and anger and sadness. And so that caused her to make a lot of mistakes and to take risks that she shouldn't take, which made the story more interesting. I liked that she was messy and I liked that she didn't have herself figured out. I don't think I loved how she was moving around so much and meeting so many different people, but I also thought that that made it interesting for the podcast element. So yeah, I'm not sure what the disconnect was with me in this book and why I didn't love it more than I did. I still liked it. I would still recommend it. I think it would make a really great miniseries. But yeah, something about it just didn't like wasn't like that 4 or 5 star feeling for me. I think that if you liked Good Girl's Guide to Murder, you would really like this. They're both a little bit of older titles, so I know they've both been recommended a decent amount, but I feel like they had a fairly similar vibe, which is interesting because A Good Girl's Guide to Murder also had something missing for me. So I don't know if I just need to pick up more adult thrillers and crime fiction, as in they're about adults and not about teens. I don't know. That's the next mystery to solve because I was really anticipating this book, so I'm bummed that I liked it but didn't love it. Okay, here's our once a video animal feature. She's like purring and rubbing up on all of my books and my laptop and me. I also don't know if I've ever introduced my kitty cat on this channel, but this beautiful girl is Macaroni. She's my little baby. So everyone say hi to Macaroni. Everyone tell her how much you love her. My next read, coming in at a 3.5, was a very surprising read for me. I am incredibly picky when it comes to romance and fantasy romance. Especially in fantasy romance, I prefer for there to be a balance or a leaning towards the fantasy side. I really dislike when the writing feels cheesy or overdone or lackluster. And if you watched my Clear My Roster video, I talked about going into this one with like a hater hat on and then being surprised and taking the hater hat off and then putting the hater hat back on partway through. I can't believe I'm even confessing this right now, but I think Quicksilver cured my reading slump. I read 7 hours of that book between Saturday and Sunday of last weekend. I just sat there, me and my Kindle, eye contact and break. I had so much fun with it. I was sucked in. I wanted to know what happened next. And I definitely had some qualms with it. Like, Kingfisher was kind of an edgelord, and some of the dialogue was unnecessarily salacious at times. Some of the magic didn't always make sense, and some of the world building was clunky, but at the end of the day, I had a lot of fun. Quicksilver follows a human girl who commits a bit of a robbery that ultimately lands her in Fae territory. I'll let you figure out how that goes down. You can pick it up yourself. While she's there, there is, of course, a tall, brunette, tattooed Fae man who's so handsome, but just, oh my gosh, he's so brooding. He's so mean. And she's like, oh, I hate him. I hate him. And he hates me. And I hate him. Oh, but we have to work together. Oh, but why am I attracted to him? And it's just this back and forth. And then ultimately, I mean, the second we found out he was a brunette with tattoos, we knew he was the love interest. These authors aren't fooling anyone, you know? So I thought the magic was really fun. I thought the political tension was cool. And I just had fun. Up next, my 4-star read that I've now talked about 3 times on this channel, unintentionally, is Murder at Gull's Nest by Jess Kidd. It is a cozy seaside mystery following an ex-nun, a quirky cast of characters, a disappearance, a murder, what else? Oh, an affair, a weird child. I think if you like cozy mysteries, you should pick it up. I think if you want more information on this book, you can watch my other videos. Okay, and this is something embarrassing for me because one of my goals is to read more of my physical TBR. I'm not a huge book buyer. I try not to buy a book unless I know I'm going to read it immediately, or it's a part of a series, or it's a really anticipated read. But I am a Nepo friend, and I have a friend who works at a bookstore, and she gets ARCs from the store. And sometimes when they have extra ARCs, I get ARCs from the store. And sometimes she's like, hey, I'm getting rid of 30 books from my shelves. Do you want to look through them? And I say, yeah, I'll take them. So I've acquired a lot, and so I need to get through them. But I've just realized like I'm a library girl through and through, and I need to stay true to myself. So my goal is to just like never buy a book again. That's okay. My goal is to really not buy books unless I know I'm reading it immediately because I want to be better about reading what I already own. This is a really roundabout way of me admitting I only read one singular book off of my own physical TBR this month. And it's a book I started in June, so I didn't even pick up another book off my physical TBR this month. But, this is a book that was highly anticipated. This was a book that's an award winner. This is a book that I started it and I was like, owie, that hurts my brain a little bit. And I was like, I want to read this book. I want to feel like a smarty pants and I want to read it and I want to appreciate it. And I did that. And it's my second favorite book of the month. And I finished it yesterday. I finished it July 31st, 10:30 p.m. I don't know if I should say enjoyed or appreciated because I think I lean towards saying I appreciated this book rather than enjoyed it because it just has some hard themes. It talks about a hard time in history, so I don't want to say like, oh, I enjoyed reading about this hardship because it was more so that I appreciated the perspective it gave me. I gave 4 stars, and that was Milkman by Anna Burns. This story follows our unnamed main character, middle sister, as she walks through life with her ears closed, her eyes closed, with truly no desire to engage in the problems in the world surrounding her. She wants to stay focused on herself, she wants to stay focused on her books, and she really doesn't engage with the political atmosphere. This takes place in a town seemingly described as Belfast during the Troubles in Ireland in the 70s, and a reformer known only to us as Milkman starts to stalk her, essentially. The word the community uses that he's pursuing her, eventually they're saying they're dating, and she has interacted with him once. He approached her at a park, and that was the rumor that started this all. Rumors start flying. It's said that she's a reformer's girlfriend. It says she's this, she's that. And she kind of refuses to engage, which ends up causing more problems in and of itself. This book is very wordy. It has long sentences, it has long paragraphs. I do not think that this book is going to be for every kind of reader. But I think this book does 2 particularly remarkable things. The first thing it does that really blew me away is it takes a look at what the feeling was during the political turmoil of the Troubles, and it puts that under a microscope with our main character. As I said, she's kind of disengaged from politics. She begins getting stalked and pursued by a man who is very involved in the political turmoil. With this stalking comes fear that she is constantly being watched, that she is constantly being followed home, that everyone on the street is reporting about her back to this milkman, and that ultimately her real boyfriend that she's seeing is going to be harmed or hurt in some way. And if we look at this main character's feelings, under this microscope and we zoom out, that's the general feeling in the whole town at the time. Every member of this town had that same anxiety that they were being watched, that they were being followed, that someone thought they were this, that someone thought they were that, and it would ultimately lead to them or one of their loved ones getting hurt. So I thought that that was really remarkable that she was able to take the feelings of a community and isolate it to this one person to really amplify those feelings. I think another remarkable thing this author is able to convey is that inaction and a failure to inform yourself on things is still a choice and still is an action. There are some really tragic things that have happened in her life that she doesn't even realize have political ties to them because she refuses to acknowledge that the politics are happening around her. Some of the things that happen to this character in the rumor mill and in what people think about her are ultimately a result of her refusal to engage in anything or and change her ways. And not in a victim blaming way, because she definitely does not deserve to be stalked because of any of her actions. She doesn't deserve this constant fear, but more so that she doesn't realize the perception people have of her because of her own actions, and that does nothing to help her cause when she does need help and support from the community. I wish that I personally had more historic context for this book, and that I wish before reading it, I had sought out more information about the Troubles because I think that would have only deepened my appreciation for the story. But that being said, I did still feel like I got the full picture and I felt like I was able to grasp what was being told. I think that this is just a really intelligently written book. It's just interesting how the author is able to be vague about so many things and yet convey messages so distinctly. So, yeah, that is Milkman by Anna Burns. My number one read of the month, coming in at 4.5 stars, is The Dream Thieves by Maggie Stiefvater. Dream Thieves is book 2 in the Raven Boys series. I'm really glad ultimately that I picked up the Raven Boys series this year. I've only known about it for a short time despite it being out for a while, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. I really, really enjoyed the magic system in this book. I found it to be very just cool and original, and I also really like the characters, and I have a soft spot for each of them. They each have moments where I want to like shake them and be like, what are you doing? I think that they're true to themselves, and I think they're teenagers and they have to learn in one way or the other how to navigate the world. And I really appreciated the glimpses we got into their lives. I liked that we got a deeper look into each of the characters in this book, and I'm just really excited to continue on in this series. So that is a wrap up of the 9 books that I read in July. Crossing my fingers that August is a stronger reading month for me and one where I just get a little bit more joy out of my reading. I'd love to know what your best read was in July in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Bye.